Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people should be aware that this presentation may contain images, voices, or names of deceased persons in photographs, film, recordings, audio, or printed.
Womaninji, welcome to Brabalong country of the Gunai Nation. Brabalong country takes in the Tambo, Nicholson and Mitchell rivers and takes us west to Providence Ponds. When visitors came to our country, they were welcomed with water and they were welcomed with gum leaves. The water because they travelled, and the gum leaves because they sat on the country, and because it was somebody else's country, they could only sit on the gum leaves. To honour this gesture, I offer you water and gum leaves. To give you an overview of Aboriginal people of Victoria, this map from the Victorian Aboriginal Corporation for Languages represents all the Aboriginal groups and their boundaries across Victoria. There are 38 different language groups across the state. Each language group had several dialects, and the stories, the cultural practices, and the cultural knowledge is in the language of the land. The Gunai 5 clan groups had 5 different language dialects. Most of the language recorded came from 3 dialects collected by surveyors, the missionaries, and others over time. This was also when much of the local language ceased to be spoken. The local language is in a process of reclamation and revival from archival and oral records, and is being revived by the community. This map of Gippsland shows the 5 clans of the Gunai. The Kratungalung occupied the land east of Lake's entrance and a strip east of the Snowy River. The Brabalong includes the Tambo, Nicholson and Mitchell rivers and their tributaries west to Providence Ponds. The Bryakalung occupied the land west of Providence Ponds and takes in the Avon, McAllister, Thompson and Latrobe rivers to the junction of the 2 lakes. The Brattalung occupied the land between the Latrobe River and Cape Liptrap from the southern watershed, taking in the sea and Yirak, the traditional name for the prom. The Tatungalung occupied the land and the water between Gippsland Lakes and the sea, taking in the islands. The Gunai moved around the land following the seasonal cycles with food and camped along the coast, along the rivers and in the high country. The Gunai lived from seafood, bush food, fish, swan eggs, oysters and mussels. This evidence of occupation is found in the shell-midden sites found along the coastal areas and the rivers. The tools and implements were made from material like bark to make canoes and string to make fish nets. String was also made from plant fibre to make bags and fish nets. The Gunai wore possum skin cloaks to keep warm in the cold weather, and each family member had their own. Ceremonies in special places were recorded and photographed. Many sites and places in Gippsland have stories from the Gunai about social behaviours and about looking after the land and sharing stories. These can be learnt from following the Butterluck Trail. This slide includes photos and images of people and places from archival sources. The images tell a story about the Gunai Kurno life on the Lake Tyers and Rumiak mission and living on the fringes off the mission. This is a short story of historical impacts on the lives of Aboriginal people of Gippsland. This map shows the two mission stations in Gippsland, Lake Tyers Mission and Rumiak Mission. Both were established in 1861. In 1830s, rapid colonial expansion by European settlers took over large tracts of land, depriving the Gunai Kurno of their land they relied on to live. This led to wars and massacres across Gippsland, where the Gunai Kurno were no match for the guns of the Europeans. These massacres are well documented. The significant decline of the Gunai Kurno population and public pressure moved the government to establish the Central Board for the Protection of Aboriginal People in 1860. It was intended that the churches would civilise and Christianise the Aboriginal people and to educate the children in Western ways. Under the Victorian Aboriginal Protection Act, this gave the Victorian Government the power to remove children from families, to institutionalise them and put them into domestic and farm service. In 1886, under the Aboriginal Protection Act, known as the Half-Caste Act, Aboriginal people from 13 to 34 years old, who were not considered full-blooded Aboriginal people, were removed and forced to live outside. Whilst the missions provided a safe place to live, the loss and destruction of culture and language is felt in the lives of Gunai Kurno people today. The Aboriginal population in Gippsland is comprised of both traditional owners and descendants of Aboriginal people from across Victoria. Aboriginal people lived on the fringes of society around Gippsland, along the Snowy River and Mitchell River, in the bush in bark huts, on the properties of farmers where they did farming, fencing and seasonal work. Many moved to work and live at timber mills across Gippsland. The first Aboriginal family moved into Bensdale in 1963 into O'Brien Street. On the 22nd of October 2010, after a 13-year court battle, the Gunai Kurno were formally recognised as the traditional owners of the land they had occupied for over 18,000 years. Mullet, on behalf of Gunai Kurno, were granted native title through the Federal Court and a settlement agreement with the State of Victoria over 1.33 million hectares of land across Gippsland. These photos share the achievement of the Elders and community celebration and court hearing at the Knob Reserve. In the agreement with the State of Victoria, it includes joint management agreements with Parks Vic and DELP, over 10 parks and reserves across Gippsland. This relationship gives the Gunai Kurno decision-making over land and water in Gippsland. Native title acknowledges the ongoing, continued connection to land, to sites, to stories, and the lands of the Gunai Kurno as traditional owners.
Womaninji Netul Maktar Rob. I'm a Gunai Kurno person from this area. My role at the keeping place, the Kutungan keeping place, is to teach young children of all ages, teach adults as well, the tourists that come through this area, the true history of Australia basically, and the true history of Gippsland, making sure people are aware of the atrocities what happened, but also what needs to happen as well into the future. When you come into the keeping place here, you'll see, you'll be gobsmacked what's actually in here. It's very small but very powerful what's delivered. There are many examples of the atrocities, or I'll say that, I'll be quite blunt, massacres, recorded and unrecorded massacres throughout Gippsland, and also the history of Lake Tyers as well, why that was there, how people were forcibly removed from other country onto Lake Tyers. You come in here and you'll see where and why Aboriginal people are still traumatised. And when I say that, what happened in my grandfather's lifetime and my great-grandmother's lifetime, and also some of our elders recall what happened at Lake Tyers, and also recall what happened in Gippsland. I've had an 18-year-old girl speak to me in front of a class, and she was traumatised, very hurt about not getting taught language because of the trauma that was happened onto them. A lot of people think that Aboriginal people live in Mai still. I've had many people ask, where do Aboriginal people live? Aboriginals, or the Gunai Kurnai, live within the community. And Lake Tyers is one of them communities, but also throughout the other towns as well. Personally, I believe it's to reconcile between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. It starts from acknowledgement. Acknowledge the true past, not ignore it, and just constantly letting our kids see that it's acceptable to acknowledge another culture as well, and acknowledge Aboriginal people being in this country for thousands of years. It's basically acknowledgement. A lot of people don't know about Aboriginal culture, why they're still hurt, generational trauma. And a lot of people in this town don't realise what's in what GJAC do, and also what's delivered from this keeping place as well. So getting aware of what's happening and be inclusive with each other, you know.
The footprint represents the land and Aboriginal people coming to the hospital, feeling comfortable and welcomed. The health service is wanting to help close the gap. The toes are sky, clouds and rain. Within the foot are two large circles representing watering holes with the local Gunai Kurnai totems, the male blue and female brown wrens. Water runs from the watering holes in the river to a central symbol, which is the meeting place. A sitting down place to talk about health and get checkups with the hospital man, represented on the side of the meeting place. The meeting place has a cross, which signifies faith and healing. The Warrawee Room is located in the main corridor of the hospital, next to the office of the Koori Health Liaison Officer. Warrawee is a Gunai Kurnai word meaning come rest a while. The Warrawee Room is a place for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and their family and friends to use while in hospital. It's a safe space to yarn, gather information, educate and share stories and ideas.